Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian McCollum, and today we are taking a look at the end of the Mamba pistol. And as exemplars here, I have 6 different Mambas in various states of condition and completion, courtesy of Val4Jet at Navy Arms. Now, I have a previous video on the Mamba that I filmed like 6 years ago in South Africa that goes over the development and the backstory of this pistol. So if you're not familiar with it, definitely check that video out for the background. I'll include a link to it in the description text below. But what I want to talk about today is what happened at the end of this project. Why didn't the Mamba become a potentially successful pistol? The core problem here, to me, really seems to be that nobody on the Mamba team had experience making firearms before. In fact, it doesn't seem like they had a whole lot of experience at making much of anything. So there's some really great light that we can shed on this whole situation thanks to this document, which Val4Jet at Navy Arms found in his warehouse alongside these sample pistols. And this is fantastic reading. This is 92 pages. It is the meeting minutes from when Val4Jet Jr., the current Val4Jet's father, went down to South Africa to meet with the Mamba team prior to starting production of the Mamba in the United States. So originally, the Mamba was supposed to be made in Rhodesia. That fell apart because there wasn't the industrial capacity. Then it was supposed to be made in South Africa. They found a company. That company ended up getting a contract to make armored cars for the South African military instead, and they kind of dropped this pistol, and you can certainly see why, especially reading through this. And so then they sell the project to Navy Arms. Well, Navy Arms, Val, he and his factory manager go down to South Africa to kind of get a feel for what's going on, see if maybe there's anything they can lend some advice. Navy Arms has expertise in making guns because they have another company that is at that time making basically Old West reproductions in the US. Like they know how to make guns. So they go down to check it out. And there's like 10 guys in this meeting, and it is just a circus of miscommunications and misunderstandings and crossed wires, you name it. There's an element in here where they're discussing the fact that the fire control group is binding up. Like there's a problem that things don't work. It's jamming against the barrel, and the disconnector is jamming against the sear, and this and that. And 4Jet breaks in and says, "Didn't you guys do a tolerance study?" You know, that's the idea. You take your blueprints and you calculate, okay, my tolerance is on this part, or plus or minus this. Well, if I have maximum tolerance on this and minimum on the next part that it interfaces with, like, does our range of tolerances actually produce a universal set of parts that will work together, or are you going to get things that bind? And the answer is, well, yes, we did a tolerance study on it, but we did a tolerance study on the pre-production prototypes. Then we changed a bunch of stuff, and now we're trying to make parts on machines and fit them into pistols, and now they're not working. And it's kind of like, well, yes, that's because you figured out if it would work, and then you changed a bunch of stuff and never went back and did another tolerance study to make sure that all of your changes actually work. This is the sort of thing that experienced manufacturing engineers recognize needs to be done. There's another part in here where 4Jet talks about having gone down to the factory floor and, you know, wandered around and taken a look to see what's going on, and found some terrifying things from a machining perspective. One being, one of the drilling machines didn't have any coolant lubricant being used because the pump had broken. And so they went, meh, I guess we don't need lubricant on that one. And of course it was creating burrs, and that was leading to problems. There was another place where one of the milling machines, the mill head, it was being run by basically unskilled labor, someone who didn't have any particular expertise, but you know, all you have to do is, you know, be a warm body that can crank the dial on the mill to the numbers that you're told to. Well, moving this mill head to the necessary position involved ramming it into another piece of, well, a piece of clamp holding one of the parts in place. And anyone who's got any machining background whatsoever knows that if you slammed the mill head into, you know, your tool head, this is essentially like the fixture that holds your spinning cutting tool. You slam it into a part, and then the whole machine kind of bends a little bit because you're trying to push two pieces of metal together. That's a problem, but meh, it wasn't bending enough that it broke, and so they just used the machine that way. And I can only imagine what Val4Jet was thinking when he saw that going on, but obviously that's a catastrophe. This is the sort of thing that you see that on a production floor, and you're like, well, clearly this isn't going to work. And no surprise, this wasn't going to work. The idea was every part of this was stainless steel. They were getting castings in from third-party suppliers because they didn't have the infrastructure to do their own casting, but the castings weren't up to quality. But they didn't want to scare off the company by demanding higher quality, so they figured, like, we'll just accept a high scrap rate now, and then we'll work on getting it better later. But their scrap rate was like 30%. There were casting flaws all over the place. Like, you know what? I've scanned this document and I've uploaded it to ForgottenWeapons.com. If you're interested in downloading this and reading the whole thing, if you want some light after dinner reading, you can check it out. I'll make it available for everyone. And it's really interesting. If you're interested in the Mamba and you want to know what was going on inside at Mamba HQ. Regarding the material changes in there, are people aware of the material change in the magazine to this 316? Yes, I think they're aware of it. No, the actual magazine itself, I'm aware of a change in the base plate of the magazine to a thicker material, but nobody's ever changed the specification on that magazine. We've got a contractual commitment on that. Well, this afternoon, somebody phoned the company supplying these things. Was the material 413 or something? 17.7 pH. Who phoned who? I phoned Brockman. Who, Ferdy Bocus? Yes, Ferdy Bocus put me on to Jim Turner. Yes, I wanted a material specification on the magazine, so he said the specification, they were depressed that the 17.7 pH. No, I think it was something else, 41, 416, but they couldn't get that in lesser quantities than 10 tons at a time, so they're making magazines in 410L. No, 316L. 316L, sorry. I don't think 316 will work. I don't think the lips will hold up. I don't think they will either, and I don't know a damn thing about this. I don't know who authorized this change, and you're not authorized to accept another magazine until someone, and I'm not going to contact them, that's ridiculous. Nobody's authorized to make a magazine change without a clearance from me. So then you must contact them. Because see, we're not heat treating these magazines, so we had to specify a plate that would take the set and hold the set from the free forming, all right? The specification for the material was 17.7 pH. Period. Simple. Shit. That was the material specification. Joe, the change that I'm aware of is in the thickness of the base plate. Who told you they changed all this? I phoned this afternoon to get the material specification for John. Yes, I required a specification for the magazine base. Sure, for the drawing. So then I was told this over the phone. Prior to that, I knew nothing. Jesus wept. I don't believe this. This explains it. Man. All right, I need a palate cleanser. Let's take a closer look at some of these pistols. Let's go ahead and start with this one. This is probably about the best example of these pistols here. And one of the things you can see, they've marked this stainless steel, and it's actually been polished down such that you don't see a lot of casting flaws in the material surface. It's got the Mamba 9mm parabellum markings there. Now it looks to me like this was bead blasted after it was marked because these markings are all pretty minimal on here. They're pretty light. This also has a South African serial number, so it's 78 PV 01092. And I think these started somewhere, I don't know, they started over 1,000, but that 78 is a production date, so it's a 1978 production pistol, and it actually looks pretty nice. This is, like I said, I think this is about the nicest one that I've seen. The grips actually meet up in the back, like the barrel has a nice sheen to it. It is also a South African proofed barrel there. Note that it is marked Model 1. We've got our South African proofs on the slide and the frame here as well. Next up, we have this just plain frame and slide. So this is also South African proofed, but up there instead of below the chamber. This one comes from the same serial number range, so it's 1978 production. This one's number 1014, but it's not a complete gun. It's just the bare slide and frame, and it also looks fairly well done. I suspect this is another gun that they put a fair amount of work into. They made sure they had a good quality slide and frame for it, but it was not actually assembled into a complete pistol. We also have this cool one. This is a factory cutaway, or it's the beginnings of a factory cutaway. So no markings at all on it, but on the right side here you can see they've cut away so that in theory you could later see how all of the internal parts worked. They just didn't ever put any internal parts into it. And this slide sure feels like it's permanently fixed to that frame. Maybe they're just galled together and you could hammer them apart, but I'm not going to. Here is a particularly interesting one because this is the last surviving evidence of the fact that Navy Arms was planning to do 3 different iterations of the Mamba. They were going to do a white Mamba, a black Mamba, and a green Mamba, following the names of actual snakes in the wild. The idea was that the white Mamba was going to be basically kind of like this, a polished stainless finish. The green Mamba was just painted green. Like, this is pre-Cerakote. You can see they've just painted it, and it got scratched here, and you know, it's just silver stainless steel underneath the paint. Then the black Mamba was going to be like a dark blued finish, and unfortunately, I don't have one of those, and I'm not aware of any surviving examples, but the green Mamba here is definitely the coolest one. Note that this one has the Navy Arms markings on it. It also has a weird serial number. Like, once you get away from the guns that were actually South African proofed, the serial numbers get strange. There are a bunch of different, seems like different batches of them. So we have one off camera here that's number 3014. This is number 000012 without any other markings on it. Well, it's got the Mamba 9mm, but nothing else over here. We have this guy, which is another, this is a complete slide and frame, Navy Arms marked. These are also galled together, or for some reason stuck, maybe rusted together. This one has serial number that is 1,400,000. So, you know, another one that seems like it's at the beginning of its own standalone range, but who knows? And then we've got this guy, which is actually another pretty good looking example. This one, aside from the hammer, not the fire control not working. There we go. There we go. Oh, that's not a good sign. This one has the Model 1 marking, which you will see on most of the production ones, but not all. And they've actually polished the slide on this, so it's got a mirror sheen to it instead of the dull matte finish that the frame has. This one is serial number P.020. So like 3 totally different serial number standard serial number like styles. This one's had the serrations polished off the front of the grip. Not sure what this was specifically intended for, but there you go. Green Mamba, super cool. A couple of other probably presentation sample sort of guns, and then a cutaway and a couple partially manufactured. Oh man, it's not good. Like, if you're making a pistol, you need to have people on the team who understand like how pistols are supposed to function, and people who are good shooters. Like, a project will fail badly if you don't have those people, but it will fail just as badly if you don't have anyone on the manufacturing side. And like, the manufacturing people don't necessarily need to know, like, they don't have to be good shooters, but they need to be able to understand how actual manufacturing works. Like, and the coordination, of course. Like, I don't know exactly what the backstory was on this whole team, but man, they did not have coordination down. So ultimately, no parts for the Mamba were ever made in the United States. The parts that were available were shipped to the US, where they were assembled into guns, and something on the order of about 100 of these Mambas were actually finished and sold onto the market. But they're catastrophically bad. Like, there was, as I say in my original video on this, there was a big shooting magazine in South Africa that was going to do a piece on the gun. They were very excited about it when it was being released. And the gun they got didn't work. And so they sent it back. And they got 2 new ones. And those also didn't work. Like, that's because none of the guns worked. Because, oh man. Anyway. Hopefully you guys enjoyed getting a bit of a closer look at some of the inside details on the Mamba. I don't think I will ever see this many of them again in one place. It was definitely enlightening to be able to take a look at these and to show them to you. So thanks for watching. Do you have the specification? No, I have information here which I've gathered. I'd like the specifications because, as things are at the moment, you're operating without proper specifications. That's a candid and full statement. Well, I disagree with you. Well, you can disagree. Well, you're on record saying what you're saying, and I'm on record saying what I'm saying, and I think you're dead ass wrong.